Rolex is one of the most luxurious brands in the world, valued at around $8 billion today. But its story starts with a teenager who lost everything: his family, his inheritance, and his future. With only his determination, he ran away from his hometown and moved to a new country, where he would later create a watchmaking empire that changed the world. Born in Kumbach, Germany, on March 22, 1881, Hans Wilsdorf was the second son of Anna and Johann Daniel Wilsdorf. His family ran a successful iron business, giving them a comfortable middle-class life. But tragedy struck early. In 1892, Hans's mother died, and his father passed away soon after, leaving Hans an orphan at just 12 years old. Taken in by his uncles, Hans was sent to a prestigious boarding school in Coburg, Bavaria. Though he was good at math and languages, Hans was often teased for his religion and felt like an outsider. But at this school, Hans made friends with a Swiss boy who talked about La Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland, a city famous for making watches. Hans became interested, seeing a new path for his life. At 19, Hans couldn't bear life at the school any longer. He left Germany and moved to Geneva, Switzerland, to work as an apprentice at a pearl exporting company. He noticed how the company made money by selling pearls without making anything themselves. This gave Hans some valuable business ideas. In 1900, Hans joined a leading Swiss watch company called Kuno Korten, working as an English correspondent and clerk. He started winding pocket watches and checking their accuracy, learning about the mechanics of watches. At 22, after serving in the military, Hans moved to London, where he worked for another watch company. By this time, he knew he wanted to start his own business. In 1905, with the help of his brother-in-law Alfred James Davis, who invested money, he founded Wilsdorf and Davis Limited, the company that would later be called Rolex. They partnered with a Swiss company to import Swiss watch parts and assemble them in England. At the time, wristwatches were thought to be for women, while men preferred larger pocket watches. But Hans saw a different future. "I believe wristwatches will replace pocket watches," he said in 1914. To make this happen, Hans spent the next several years traveling across Europe, learning from different watchmakers and improving his designs. By 1908, his company was already one of the best in England. But Hans knew he needed a name that would match the quality and fame he wanted for his brand. After thinking carefully, he chose the name Rolex. It was short, easy to say in any language, and would fit perfectly on a watch. He registered the name in 1908. Rolex quickly became known for its precision, and many rich people started wearing the brand. But World War I brought its own challenges. While many businesses struggled, Rolex thrived by supplying the military with reliable, accurate wristwatches. Soldiers used Rolex watches in the war to time their actions with precision. In 1915, as anti-German feelings grew in Britain, Hans moved the company to Switzerland to avoid a 33% export tax. He also officially changed the company's name to Rolex Watch Corporation Limited. In 1919, Rolex moved its headquarters to Geneva, where it continued to grow and innovate. In 1926, Rolex introduced the Rolex Oyster, the world's first waterproof wristwatch. But Hans had a clever marketing idea to prove it. In 1927, he gave a Rolex Oyster to Mercedes Gleitze, who was trying to swim across the English Channel. While she didn't complete the swim, the watch survived, still working perfectly. Hans used this publicity to advertise the Rolex Oyster as the first truly waterproof watch. In 1931, Rolex introduced the Oyster Perpetual, the first waterproof, self-winding watch. Rolex continued to break records in the 1930s. In 1933, Rolex watches were worn by mountaineers during a flight over Mount Everest. In 1935, Malcolm Campbell broke the land speed record of over 300 miles per hour, wearing a Rolex that survived the extreme conditions. By the 1940s, Rolex had become the ultimate symbol of precision, strength, and luxury. The introduction of the Rolex Datejust in 1945, the first wristwatch with an automatic date display, set a new standard. Later, the Rolex day date came out, showing both the date and the day of the week. Hans Wilsdorf passed away in 1960, but Rolex continued to grow. The brand became a symbol of innovation and luxury, known all over the world. In the 1980s, Rolex became the first company to use 904L steel, a very durable material. Today, Rolex is the most famous watch brand in the world, known for its quality, history, and prestige. From being an orphan with nothing, Hans Wilsdorf changed the world of watches and built a legacy that lives on in every Rolex you see today.